Welcome one and all to Creative Spark, my YouTube show where I talk to cool people about the cool things that they do. With me today is a keeper of the law and the lady with the duct tape on her mouth, Dael Kingsmill.
That is me. That is me.
How are you?
I'm doing what? Is the lady with the duct tape okay?
Is the
She's
lady with
doing
the duct
great.
tape okay? Yeah. The best way of phrasing it, and also heck of an intro if that's the first time somebody's watched the Lawcast.
I like to make an impression, stick in people's mind.
Yeah, it's memorable. I think it's the important thing. I think it's very funny. It ended up as a thumbnail because it's like, what happened?
I feel kind of bad. Ben had a different idea for the thumbnail already.
Oh
And it
no.
was AI themed, and it was like a good, like, solid mid-level clickbait where people weren't gonna get too mad about it, but it was gonna get clicks. He was kind of hyped about it, and then I went and did that, and every person was just saying, "Well, that's gonna be the thumbnail,"
Yeah.
and he was like, "Yeah, it's the thumbnail."
Ben's just like, okay. It happens. It's the same with titles, though. Sometimes you're like, oh, I said a cool thing. That's going to be the title of the thing. And then someone else says something cooler, and you're like, damn it.
I guess I'll just put the other idea away.
You're fine. Just table it forever. No, it's fine. Anyway, other than being at 5 frames a second, you're well, so that's good. That was me addressing the weird tech issues we've been having. We tried.
Yeah, look, we're sorry. We're sorry. You have no idea. We tried so many different tactics to try and beat the robots, and they won.
So quickly. So efficiently. It's great. Anyway, so let's cast your mind back, which is a chunk of time for your YouTube channel.
It is. It is. I was looking at analytics today and realized that it's my 12th year on YouTube this year.
Yes. So 12 and a half years ago, let's say. Where did the idea of doing a YouTube channel spring up for you?
So for me, it was such a weird journey, I suppose, because I was like embedded in YouTube. Like I watched a lot of YouTube, and I had probably uploaded a couple of scripts and scraps here and there. That's a phrase. That's a real phrase, scripts and scraps. Yeah, obviously, for sure. Like I had a different channel that I used to watch YouTube on and comment on YouTube on, that I uploaded silly little things like I think the first video was just me wearing a stupid alien hat and doing a dance, which actually is a recurring thing for me, I suppose, on the internet, dressing stupid and doing stupid dances. Oh no.
It's good to have a through line.
Yeah, I suppose. I wish I had a cooler one, but I'll accept what I've done to myself. Things like that. And I did I submitted a thing for the Dr. Horrible sing-along blog DVD special features. Like it has bits and pieces of that. And I watched a lot of YouTube. So I kind of absorbed it throughout my teen years. And then I started university studying theater, amongst other things, theater, English lit, and eventually digital media, because couldn't just pick one. But I remember one of my friends had gone to a different university and was studying sort of production. And they would do all these things. The production students and the theater students would get together and make like short films and web series. And my friend had shown me this web series that they were working on as a first year student at this other university. And it was crap. It was garbage. But it was like they were making stuff. And that was so exciting. And so I wanted to be making stuff. And I remember this frustration with the way theater was taught at my university as well, because it was very old school or very particularly 80s Australian theater was like where those lecturers came from, and it was what they were teaching. And they were not going to look to new media for anything. And I was trying to convince some of the other like acting students to make stuff with me, to make a web series. And they were all a little bit uncertain. And then Geek and Sundry put out a call that they were making a second channel. There was this kind of bizarre shakeup when Google took over YouTube, and they started this creator program where they were giving specific channels sort of grants to start stuff. So people would pitch channels. The channels that got picked up were Felicia Day pitched Geek and Sundry. I know that Philip DeFranco pitched SourceFed, And then I think the Amy Poehler had something, and they were the ones that kind of got the money to get started. And so Geek and Sundry had been doing tabletop for a while, and then they put out this call saying, hey, we're going to start a second channel, and we want you to be on it. Like we want it to be a vlogging channel where people will just talk about their specific nerdy interests, and we're going to sort of audition people for that. So they had their sort of squad of like, I don't know, 7 people to start with. And then they were looking for another sort of 7 or so people to add on to that roster so that they could be, it was like a video every day, and then it would swap out over a 2-week cycle.
Right.
So like I know that I was every second Monday
Okay.
on the vlogs channel. But it was basically this audition process. And I remember watching that and going, I'm a geek. I know geek things. I don't know what I'm a geek for, but I know I am one. And that turned into, I think I had lunch with a friend of mine, and I said, oh, that reminds me of this Greek myth, and told the story of Sisyphus. And my friend was so bored. And I was like, oh, this is it. This is me. That's my thing. And so I submitted telling the story of Sisyphus, and I drew little cartoons to go in it as well. And submitted that, and I got picked up, and that was sort of the beginning of my YouTube journey. Was scorning my theater degree that didn't want to make stuff with me.
There's a weird irony in Sisyphus being the thing that helped you achieve something new.
Oh my god, you're so right. I've never thought of that.
Like, it's a very entertaining. Poor Sisyphus. He's got it rough.
Yeah.
He does.
Sisyphus, you know what? Modern Sisyphus is just making videos in the face of the YouTube algorithm. That's the mountain. That's the hill. The boulder is the videos that we're making.
Do I need duct tape? Where's my duct tape? I don't have any. Yes.
We all have thoughts. We all have thoughts on the algorithm.
I'm not going to do it. This one interview. I'm not going to whinge about YouTube. It's fine. I taught my editor, one of my editors at one of the places I work, the phrase Sisyphean, because I think I described vacuuming as being Sisyphean or something. It was something very like low level.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Oh, you taught me this word." I was like, "Oh, good, thanks." It's always nice. Anyway, so that was how you got into YouTube in general. Is that how Monarchs Factory started as well then?
It is. It was sort of at the time of uploading the video, I suddenly made a bunch of different decisions. I was like, okay, I'm submitting this video. I have to upload it to a channel.
Right.
I don't want it to be this crappy old channel that I have, which is funny because I broadly have a bizarre like policy for myself that I never delete anything off the internet.
Right.
So it's weird that I was like, I don't want it to be on this channel. I want it to be something fresh, but I did anyway. And I remember at the same time was when I decided to go under Dael Kingsmill, because I was like, so I was Dael Campbell. This isn't a secret, but I guess I haven't like talked about it much. But I was Dael Campbell, but Kingsmill is my mother's maiden name. And so I liked the idea of having that sort of feminist through line as like a stage name. So I'd done auditions under Dael Kingsmill, and I decided to do the YouTube under Kingsmill as well at the same time. And then I remember I was going to create the channel and upload the video for the Geek and Sundry audition, and I originally was going to call the channel Daily Dale because that was just like a nickname that I had through high school.
Yeah.
And just before submitting, I realized that Daily Grace was one of the biggest things on YouTube at the time, because it was before she had to move off to her own channel as well. And so it was Daily Grace, and I was like, I can't be Daily Dale. That's not gonna fly. And at the last minute, the fact that I had decided on Dael Kingsmill, my sister suggested Monarchs Factory.
Right.
Because of course it is a pun. Kingsmill, Monarchs Factory. But it just sounded kind of neat and cool. And I had that, I think there was a spark in me that was like, ooh, branding, because, you go, ooh, crown and gears. And so that sort of logo popped into my brain as well. So, thank you to my sister. She takes credit for that, but she deserves it.
It is a really, I really like Monarchs Factory is a very cool name, but yeah, doing the research for this interview and finding out that's where it came from was, I took like 3d6 psychic damage from it.
Oh yeah,
Just sat
I
here,
love
just
it.
like,
It's a
oh.
real sleeper hit as well.
Yeah.
I will get comments from people saying, "I've been following you for 3 years, and I just realized."
How
I love
dare
it.
you?
Hits them in the night.
Yeah, just as they're falling asleep. Wait, what?
All along. It was a pun, always has been.
Damn
Yeah.
you, Kingsmill. Um, how did you go from there to where you are? Because the through lines you've taken just on your YouTube channel alone are quintessentially ADHD. Is how I'm
They
going to
really
phrase it.
are. They really are. I was actually looking at my analytics today, and out on a whim was like, oh, I wonder what it looks like over like the grand scheme of my whole lifetime on YouTube. And seeing those patterns emerge was just what is happening here. Because I started out with the mythology, but then that was going up on the Geek and Sundry Vlogs channel. So my channel, I was just doing kind of whatever.
Yeah.
I was just like, I think one of my earliest videos is I found a paint color catalog. I was like, these names are silly. So I just read out a bunch of paint color names. Like, great content, Dale. Really, really good.
That's classic Vine era, like,
oh,
video
it
work,
was.
to be fair.
It was. And I think so much of my early YouTube is really influenced by it was an era of YouTube where it was before the gamers came in, so it was kind of like the dynasty of the vloggers. But if you weren't a vlogger, you were still, it was like all of YouTube was kind of personality driven rather than niche driven.
Yeah.
There were niches, but not nearly as many. More channels you would expect for it to be like, this is the person I am following, and they're just doing a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And so that was what I'd grown up on, and that's what was still kind of broadly popular. And so I got away with it. You know, it was yeah. Once a fortnight, I've got the mythology happening, and I'm known for that. But the people who are coming to my channel from there are getting like just whatever. They're just, I'm building a desk today, folks, you know. And then over time, after, so Geek and Sundry Vlogs shut down probably like a year and a half or 2 years later after I'd sort of jumped on. And so then the mythology videos moved over to my personal channel. And kind of, it took over a little bit, but not entirely. But I definitely was, it became more of, oh, I guess I'm a mythology channel.
Yeah.
But in amongst that, I started doing quite literally, and this was all pre ADHD diagnosis. I was doing videos that I called TED videos because I thought that was funny. I was doing like TED Talks, but it was too easily distracted. And it was too easily distracted. I love tortoises. Like it was, but it was just whatever I had been hyper focused on for that week. Because it inevitably was the thing that it actually often came about because I had been so focused on whatever this stupid thing I was looking up was, like the raising of tortoises.
Yep.
The tortoise forums, by the way, are useless. Tortoise forums that are meant to help you, they're useless. They're full of people saying you shouldn't own a tortoise. Stop gatekeeping tortoises.
If I end up on some hit list for tortoise enthusiasts because of this,
yeah, they're gonna find you, and they're gonna blame you, not me. So I mean,
it's my fault. I take ownership of this.
It's for the distribution of my diatribe. No, but it was, I would get so fixated on these things that the next upload day, because I was uploading basically like every Friday or something, I would get to upload day and I didn't have anything. So the only thing I could talk about was whatever I'd been fixated on.
Yeah.
And it was also much easier to do in those days because the algorithm was, pre-gaming was much more geared to shorter form content, right? It was Vlog Brothers, it was 5 minutes or under. And my videos always skewed a bit longer, but it was like, I can talk for 7 minutes about tortoises, you know? So it was a lot of that. But then one day I think I did a TED video on a D&D thing that I'd been fixated on. And then a couple weeks later, I did another D&D thing because I'd still been thinking about D&D.
Yep.
And then it just kind of started to snowball a little bit. And after a handful of these sort of D&D focused videos, I happened to do one with a a ludicrous title. It was My Rules for Earning an Animal Companion. And Matthew Colville happened to see it. And he at the time he was on the record as like he doesn't really watch much D&D YouTube because he makes D&D YouTube, and he was always like, that's what I do for work, so I'm not spending my downtime doing that. But apparently the algorithm put this in front of him, and he thought the name was so absurd that he decided to watch it. And he thought that yes, my rules were ludicrous, but he enjoyed the video enough to share it. And suddenly I went from 25,000 subscribers to 50,000 subscribers in over the next like 2 videos. So that was kind of like, oh, all right, the D&D thing. I see. I see. And I was already doing the D&D thing. And then it was also bizarre because at the time of that shout out, I had been making a web series. It was the first, I looked back, I was like, I'm 7 years or something into YouTube. I originally wanted to make a web series. That was like the reason I wanted to start on YouTube before Geek and Sundry, and I hadn't done it. And so I started making this silly little web series called Wolfgang with a couple of friends from uni. I did manage to convince them. I paid them, to be fair. So maybe they wouldn't have done it if I didn't. But I did. So we don't need to consider the alternate reality. But yeah, I was making this silly, dinky little web series at the same time about werewolves, as all these people have started subscribing looking for D&D content, and it was just like the most bizarre swing in terms of viewer numbers, because I'd get like 2,000 views on a Wolfgang video and 20,000 plus on the D&D. It was a very bizarre time. But yeah, I got swept up into the D&D stuff, and yeah, mostly keep to that. Occasionally throwing back to the mythology. I try not to forget the mythology heads who were there first. Mythology heads? I don't like that. I take that back. That's not what they called themselves.
What do they call
so
themselves?
What I'll call them. I don't think they call themselves anything. I think that the era of YouTube audiences naming themselves something is sadly dead and gone. I think that it would have been great if I'd gotten a big following during that era just to see what they called themselves, but I never got that. The Kingsmill.
Yeah, that would.
I don't have 1 million subscribers. I don't think that would work.
The Factoried Monarchs. You've got a few options with.
Yeah, they could do something. They could figure it out. Figure it out.
Figure
but
it
they
out.
definitely weren't the mythology heads. I know that much. But yeah, and I found myself occasionally, like when I got that huge influx of D&D subscribers, I remember one of the first videos I made after I hit the 50,000 was like analyzing poetry, because I was like, none of these people are here for this. Literally no one is here for this. But I need them to know that it's my channel as much as theirs. I need them to know that I'm gonna sometimes not do D&D.
Yeah.
And I still have that little kind of, I don't know, the rebellious streak in me sometimes.
It is very confrontational with the YouTube algorithm.
Yeah.
You can't make me do other things.
You don't control me.
My ADHD controls me.
It does.
It's exhausting. Running YouTube, which is funny. Okay, so running YouTube with ADHD is wild, because obviously you're expected to stick to a niche, right? 95% of the people I've interviewed for this have ADHD or are neurodivergent in some way. And most of them are in a niche. And I think that is remarkable. Because it's impossible, I think, otherwise. I don't know. It's a paradox. I think if you think too long about it, your head will just start, like, your ears will start bleeding and stuff.
Yeah.
Have you ever, during all of this, have you ever worried about the fact that you didn't have a more specific focus?
No, I kind of worry in the other direction, because I think I pretty effectively niched down. So I think the issue there is that when you niche effectively, you climb very quickly, but you plateau pretty soon as well. So it's like, there are only so many people who are looking for someone who is retelling stories from mythology.
Yeah.
And there are only so many channels who were servicing that. It was me, the people who do the blue and red cartoons who have a name. And I should know, but it's the Matt Colville thing, right? I make mythology videos, so I don't really watch mythology videos.
Yeah.
But there are a handful of people out there. One of Hank Green's side projects was a mythology based one. Like there's a handful of channels out there, and the people who follow one probably follow the others in most cases. But it's, you know, once you have reached that niche audience, there's only so many more people that you can kind of reach out to, and they can find you. And so then it flattens out. So in a weird way, that swing from mythology into D&D or into other subjects accidentally worked really well in my favor, because it meant that there was a through line. You know, there are a lot of people who are interested in one or interested in the other, but it was a whole different audience. So I got that sort of spike of growth again. I mean, obviously the initial 50,000 was just the shout out from Colville, because he had that effect. But the Colville effect, they called it. But you know, it continued to grow from there. I was really surprised looking at my metrics today, seeing how that growth continued even beyond just that sort of one big spike, because, you know, you're tapping into a new niche. And if you can transition niches, it's very powerful. But then you're still kind of only servicing that new segment of the audience. And then eventually you're going to have to transition again. And I've always kind of, I want to go in the other. I understand why that's effective.
Yeah,
I understand. Like again, digital media was one of my things I studied at uni, and you know, the long tail effect. I get it. I get why it works. I get why it's handy and powerful and good. And I would never advise someone who is beginning on YouTube to not niche. But I look at it and I still have that longing for the old days of like personality driven YouTube. That's what I tend to look for in YouTube channels. And it's what I wish the algorithm could still accommodate today, but I just don't think it super works that way.
So we talk about the algorithm, and this is something that obviously a lot of YouTubers do talk about, myself included. And the algorithm is really just what the audience are clicking on.
Yes. That is the perfect succinct way of putting it.
Yeah. So as much as various creators do talk about it, it's because the way that people have used YouTube has changed rather than YouTube has changed. YouTube obviously has changed to facilitate some of that, but that is entirely a reactionary thing to the way that people use it.
Completely. And it's, I mean, as much as I can grumble about it, the algorithm is better than it's ever been. It is incredibly fine-tuned. And I was really worried for a while there when they were clearly competing with TikTok and TikTok's algorithm, right? And you know, everyone will talk about, oh, TikTok is the most sophisticated algorithm in the world. And it's not really. It's just a very, very sensitive algorithm. So it will change very quickly to mirror your sort of interactions with content. Whereas YouTube has always had an incredible and powerful algorithm behind it. And when they were trying to get shorts to compete with TikTok at the very beginning, I saw this sudden shift where it was like, it's too sensitive. I watch one video about this thing and suddenly my entire recommendation feed is that thing. But I think it's kind of coming back around now to a really balanced place. And it is absolutely incredible the way that it can, regardless of a channel's size, just detect, oh, people will like this, you know, and put it in front of the right people. I saw a really good video the other day where they were describing, you know, we have this tendency to talk about the algorithm as if it pushes videos out, but really it pulls videos in. It's more magnetic than that. It looks at an individual viewer and it says, you like this, this, and this, you're probably going to like this. And it's very, very good at it. But if you've got a channel with 12 years of baggage and a ton of people who only want to see D&D, boy, do they not want to see you play Mario Kart.
Is D&D going to be the focus of your channel going forwards? Like, is that the plan there?
It's interesting that you ask that. I've been pondering that, because I refuse to call myself a D&D channel. I do think I will still make videos about, I don't think I'm going to stop making videos about D&D. But I like making videos about other things. I like getting caught up in sort of the excitement about something different, and putting that in front of people. Because I suppose part of the difficulty is that my passion has never been necessarily the thing that I am making videos about. My passion is in entertaining people. And I suppose that's reflected in the theater background. Like it all sort of comes across in the end. But that makes it bizarre, because it's like, this is the medium I happen to be choosing because I have access to it.
Yeah.
And this is the content that I happen to be choosing because I have an audience that are interested in it. But that's not at the heart of what I'm getting out of it.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. And so, you know, there are other kinds of videos I want to do. I was chatting with my friend Trent, who has a channel called Miscast. And he's he's such a brilliant creator and he's such a cool person. But we often, I feel like, when it comes to YouTube, kind of creatively, butt heads feels more aggressive than it is. It's much more gentle than that. But you know, I've had back and forth arguments with him where I'm talking about, you know, it should work this way, and he's like, right, but it doesn't. It doesn't though. Your audience. And I think there is a middle ground in those conversations that we've come to, where he kind of pointed out that it's the tone of the content. Should bear a similarity, even if the exactitudes of the content don't match. So it's an audience that like sort of thoughtful content that is delivered in a way that doesn't require them looking at the screen necessarily. It's more about talking through an idea and that kind of, I don't know, pondering quality that I think a lot of them probably are both attuned to and acclimatized to on my channel. But they enjoy it. And if I can find sort of Venn diagram spaces where it's something that I'm kind of excited to talk about and they're happy to hear it, then I think that's what it is, more than specifically D&D or stories or any of that.
Your channel is effectively a Venn diagram of pancakes, which sort of have an overlap. You are the through line, and then you're capturing stuff as you go along.
Yeah. Yep.
Which is cool.
Get caught up in the whirlwind. Get caught up in it.
Like, which pancake? Which stack are you? It's a weird way of phrasing it. I'm hungry, I think.
No, I love it. I love it.
Okay.
Join the pancake whirlwind.
There you go. That's what your channel members are called. We did it. So along with your own stuff, you also do just so much other stuff, and I think the most well-known of these are probably the MCDM and Draw Steel things, which are obviously together, and then obviously the Eldritch Lawcast as well. So you can pick whichever one you want, but how did you get into those as you were going through this all?
So after Matt shouted me out, we'll start there because we've already touched on it. And I remember this, I don't know how, but like just multiple times throughout my life when someone much bigger and more in the spotlight than me has called me out. No, that makes it sound like they're picking a fight with, has shouted me out.
Yeah.
The English language.
That'll be the title. Whenever somebody's called me out, it might have to be that.
Dael has secret internet beef. But I'm always like in my PJs looking daggier than ever, super slouched, and like eating a burger. It's happened like 3 times, I want to say. And that happened with Colville when he shouted me out and I started getting comments from people being like, did you see Twitter? I was like, what's going on Twitter? And I went over there and he mentioned me on Twitter. He was like, this was a funny title. And he mentioned it there. And I stewed over it for a couple of hours because I was like, I want to word this right. Because I was such a Colville fan as well.
Yeah.
I was watching a VOD of a live stream of his when I got the notifications.
With a burger.
Eating the burger.
In your
with
PJs.
a burger.
Did the fillings fall out at the bottom when you got the notification?
They did. Like a cartoon.
Yeah.
And so I stewed over it for a couple of hours. And then I replied, because I wanted to get it exactly right. I was like, my reply was something like, finally, my self-deprecation gets me the glory I deserve. Something like that. Because I wanted it to just be, like, ha 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 ha.
I'm not freaking out. You're freaking out.
Yeah, you're freaking out. Everything's fine. And so I made this throwaway joke, but it was funny enough that he was amused and replied again. And then it turned into a thing where he practically dared himself to then shout me out in a video instead of just a tweet.
Oh, wow.
And so then he mentioned me in a video, But then in the video, he was using a green screen, and someone in the comments commented that they could tell it was a green screen, and Matt's a perfectionist. And so he took down the video and then redid the video where he shouted me out again. But in the first one, he said that, yes, my rules were stupid. And then in the second one, he said they weren't stupid because he wanted it to be a surprise twist. It just got very convoluted, and I think it forced him to interact with me and remember me enough times that I didn't get swept away into like the annals of history. Instead, somehow I got sort of carried along in this, and then I went to the US for convention season, and he heard I was over there, and he invited me to the new studio that they just set up.
Awesome.
And so it's sort of, I don't know, it became this bizarre friendship, and then or YouTube neighbors, as he would say. And I remember because my friend Omar in LA had very kindly driven me to the studio, which is in Orange County. And we were very cool. It was very calm. It was very good and normal and nice. And he gave me some gemstone dice for no reason, and that was great. And I still have them. But then we got in the car afterwards, and I freaked out. I was like, ah! And I can't stress enough. I'm not actually prone to being starstruck. I can only remember fangirling a couple of times in my life. Oh gosh, it's for really nerdy things. It's like Matt Colville.
Yep.
And when John Bell. So John Bell is an Australian theatre legend. He started the Bell Shakespeare Company, and their whole thing was they started this revolution of performing Shakespeare with Australian accents in like natural clothing instead of clothing. So it's like a whole thing. And I went to see a performance of As You Like It, and I didn't realize John Bell was in the show as Touchstone, and he did the Stages of Man speech, and I freaked out. Because I was in like the third row. I freaked out. So those are the only times that I can think of that I've like really fangirled. But somehow Colville keeps catching me whenever I'm fangirling, and I'm very upset about it because I go to great lengths to not do it in front of him.
Yeah, of course.
But no, I somehow got caught up in all of that and not left behind, and became YouTube neighbors. And then when they were, going through Draw Steel development, they thought they would like to sort of keep up this communication between the supporters, the Patreon backers, and the dev team. And they had originally been doing these Q&As themselves as just live streams where they would read questions from chat. But I think anyone who does streaming has this experience of like, your IQ drops when you are streaming. I don't know what it is. Having to monitor chat, I am just way stupider than I usually would be. And so there was a little bit of that where they couldn't look at the questions ahead of time and figure out what were going to be good questions or not. So they'd be reading a question and only realize at the end of it that they didn't have an interesting answer to give. And so eventually they thought, oh, well, Dael can read. So we'll bring her
really
in.
Selling yourself there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the main thing that I need to be able to do, right? So they just sort of brought me in, and the idea was we'll get the questions ahead of time. Dael can pick the questions, and she can, and I become like the ultimate audience member in that way, because I am someone who watches and is a fan of this content. I kind of get to represent that group of people and be their voice box and put the questions to them, and they get to just chill out a little bit and not worry so much, and that's nice, and they pay me for it, and I love that for me and my continued survival.
Everyone loves that for you in the hellscape that is capitalism. Okay, so that's how you got into the MCDM stuff, which is very cool. We love falling into things.
Love it. Happy accidents, big fan.
How my career works too. So I'm a qualified accountant, a qualified personal trainer. I write for a living. You'll notice that neither of those things would indicate that I should be writing. Here we are.
But I love that for you.
It's the sheer raw power of ADHD, of undiagnosed ADHD just coursing through me.
Unstoppable. And in many other ways, extremely stoppable.
So stoppable. By the smallest things, sometimes. Usually hunger. Anyway, derailed, shockingly. So that's MCDM. How did you end up on the Lawcast then? How did you end up with Ghostfire?
That one was really funny too, from my perspective, from Ben's perspective. I how much of this am I allowed to say? I don't think it's it's fine.
Know. I can't
It'll be
answer
fine.
that for you.
As far as I am aware, it was much more by design.
Okay.
In that Ben had had experience with a podcast. He had actually, when I started on the Lawcast, several people on my community Discord went, "Is that Ben Byrne from whatever the name of his other podcast was?" So he I don't know, he's worn so many hats, and he's been very good at all of them. Don't let him hear me say nice things. But anyway,
I'll edit it out.
Thank you so much. After our conversation about how much
I'm not going to, but yeah.
I know you're not going to.
I'm sorry.
You're scrubbing through all that to try to find the moment I said
not happening.
Nah, not happening.
That'll be the entire interview. You just the one bit where you said nice things about Ben Byrne.
Yeah. Yeah, and so he sort of had experience in and knew what would kind of work for a podcast. And from the way he tells it, he was already planning to ask me to be on the Lawcast. But the email I received was an email from Ben from Ghostfire saying, "Hey, we've got these sort of blog entries that we do. We'd love it if you would, write some guest blogs."
Yeah.
And I remember it was my birthday because I thought I'll answer this tomorrow. I don't have to answer emails
was there a
on my
burger
birthday.
Involved this time or no burger this time?
Must have been cake, And then before the day was even through, I got another message from James Hake,
right,
who I already knew. We were friends. I got a message on Twitter from James saying, "Hey, I hear we're going to be on this podcast together." And I was like, "What?" I didn't message them back right away because I also got another message on Twitter from another sort of acquaintance saying, have you talked to my friend so and so, a different person from Ghostfire that I didn't know? They work for Ghostfire and they are great. And I was like, what is happening? Because I hadn't heard of Ghostfire before. And so I was just like, I've got two messages from Ghostfire. One is normal, one is not normal. And it's not from Ghostfire, it's just kind of a proxy thing.
Yeah.
And then I've got James saying I'm going to be on a Ghostfire podcast. I was like, what is going on? I don't know whether I should be telling this story. I think it's very funny. I think it was funny and fine. But it turns out Ben had already kind of been laying the groundwork for the podcast.
Right.
And he was his sort of soft open for me as an introduction to working with them was, "Hey, do you want to write a blog?" Which is very smart. And it was a very normal, sane person email that I had immediately thought, yes, I will say yes to this.
Yeah.
But then these other messages came through. What is going on? It just turned out that in the back, because he'd already asked James, and then and it all kind of got bizarre and mixed up, and other people got mixed into it in a weird way, and so I just found out in the wrong order. So when I had my first like Zoom call meeting with Ben, I was so wary. I was like, what is going on? What is happening here? I'm on your podcast, what's going on? But that was a miscommunication. And I did end up on the podcast, and I'm really pleased that I ended up on the podcast because it's been great.
I mean, that's a great way of doing it.
I don't know why all of your questions have seemed so straightforward, and all of my answers have been, welcome to the helter skelter that is my life.
Wish I could tap my microphone without it disconnecting. If I could, it'd be tap tap, and then it'd be ADHD. It turns out if you point enough ADHD people at other people with ADHD, just conversation, just long answers happen and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I've interviewed a couple of people that have been like, "Oh, sorry, the answer was so long," and I'm like, that's the point. Although I also apologized at one point for asking too many questions. So, like,
it's an interview, Jason.
I know. I understand my role. I'm just
That's
British and I can't help it. I just feel like I should apologize constantly.
No.
And I should. No, it's the correct thing. Historically.
Never apologize.
Historically. As someone from the UK, I should probably apologize constantly.
As a white Australian. Yeah, I get it.
It's not...
Yes.
Yeah. So.
You're right. We should.
See? Sorry. How do you juggle all of that?
Quite badly.
I knew you were gonna say that.
Yeah, I mean, today I sent out invoices and I give myself a big pat on the back. Those invoices covered from September till now for MCDM.
Oh my goodness.
And like the last 20 episodes of the Lawcast. Like I'm so bad at it. And this is with I a reminder went off in my phone 2 days ago to send invoices. And it is a monthly reminder. But you know what? It is so easy to ignore it. And I did apparently since September. So it's I wouldn't say I'm great at the juggling.
Yep.
I think in a weird way, the more I have on, the better I handle it. I think that's an ADHD thing as well.
Yep.
It's like when I was doing 3 videos a fortnight and studying university full time, I was fine.
Yep.
I was golden. I was adding cartoons to those videos.
Yep.
But then the minute that time frees up a little bit more, I don't know, everything gets really hard. And when you're not diagnosed and you're not medicated, because that only came very recently, it's this just weight of I want to be doing this. I want to be getting this done. But it's like trying to start a car's ignition with a dead battery. It just won't go. So I don't know, in a strange way, the more I pile on, the better I'm able to kind of juggle it, because you have to. You have to find the time to do XYZ. I don't know. I think it's a frantic juggle. I think it's one of those backwards juggles, where instead of doing it this way, they suddenly start doing this. And you're like,
and
I think that's
and also the juggler's screaming.
And the juggler's screaming.
Crying. And there's a
everything's on
somewhere.
Fire. there's
I think it's with I don't know, because I've got the same thing. The busier I am, the more competent I am. And I think it's like the things in motion stay in motion. But if I stop getting back into motion, it feels like someone's trying to rip my soul out of me if I take a break and then I have to go back to work.
That inertia is so real.
It's rough.
It's so real. I mean, you experienced how long it can take me to get back on emails. Like if I miss emails, that mountain.
We did it.
It can.
That's all that matters.
But I did it, and we're here. So
it's not like you're the only person I've ever had to double check with. I think honestly, a lot of my emails end up in spam because it's like this isn't real.
And sometimes Google will put strange things in spam.
No, I deserve to be there. That's what I would put my emails to if I was a spam filter. I'm not a spam filter. Clearly, I have ADHD. Do you? That's just a rephrasing question. I'm just not going to ask that. Do you get much chance to actually play D&D in amongst all of this?
Not as much as I would like. And people offer, and it just doesn't line up the way that that ideally it would. It is the old enemy of scheduling. When I do get to play, boy, is it delightful. Often it ends up being one-shots for birthdays. Either someone else has decided, I'm doing D&D for my birthday and I just get to play. Or not infrequently, someone will say, can you run D&D for my birthday? And I can't say no to them. But that is often the context in which I play, or just anything on camera where it's, hey, we're doing a charity stream. Do you want to come and play in it? Those are the most places I get to play now, which is kind of a shame. A campaign play is quickly becoming a foreign concept for me.
You're in Australia. I cannot reasonably offer you like a campaign because the time difference is the worst.
It's tough. It's
the
tough.
Worst.
I mean, even in Australia, like all my friends, I just moved easily an hour and 40 minutes away from all my friends. So it's really, it's one of those things where distance is hard and time is hard.
Being an adult is hard.
Being an adult is so hard.
It's the worst. Honestly, I've paid so many bills and expenses this month, and it's like, but I had savings and now they're gone.
Boo.
Boo, boo.
At least you're a trained accountant, so
Honestly,
you're ready to deal with the numbers.
as weird as that phase was for me, trying to be a professional human being and stuffing myself into a tie and a shirt, it is an incredibly useful skill set.
I think that's the best way to do it in a strange way, is to get skills and then not do the job associated with those skills.
Yes. Don't.
It's great.
Yeah.
Because then you become the person at a different job who's best at that thing.
Which is fine as long as that gets you paid, which is why I like being a
That's
self-employed
true.
freelancer, because
Yes.
I don't do anything unless I'm getting paid.
Wise.
That's how that works. Apart from YouTube, I guess, but that's for me. So that was the one complaint about YouTube. They should pay everyone. They shouldn't pay everyone. Don't pay me. God, I've really gone off the handle. This is what happens when I interview someone in the morning instead of the evening. Like, I'm
so sorry.
Worn myself
Time
down.
zones.
It's not your fault, but I haven't like worn myself down through doing a full day of work instead of.
We're having a good time.
We are. Do you have anything you would like to plug?
That's a really good question. Look, you can come check out my channel, Monarchs Factory. I just did a video, and I'm confident that I will continue to make more.
Really selling it.
Don't laugh at me. I'm fully serious right now.
It was the way you said it.
No, I'm fully serious right now, and I'm a professional, and I'm doing this really well. This is, like you said, you hate the intros, as do I. Plugging stuff also sucks.
That's fair.
So what else do I do? I'm on the Eldritch Lawcast, which is every week, and we live stream it at a time that I do not know. It's 9 a.m. where I am.
Somewhere. Yeah.
It's different times everywhere else. But that's on Australian morning, Tuesday, 9 a.m. Or you can just wait for it to come out on YouTube, where it is uploaded with video as well as audio. And that it comes out on Thursdays.
No, Wednesdays. I think I watched it yesterday.
I genuinely don't know. I think it comes out like Wednesday night here. I genuinely don't know. Dante needs like a day to edit it.
I've watched it because I made the duct tape reference. Today is Thursday.
So yeah,
I must have watched it yesterday.
I guess. I don't understand time, Jason. I don't understand time. All I know is that Dante has a day to edit it. And that doesn't seem like enough, because I hate editing and I always take so long to edit. And yeah, I'm hoping to start some new things soon. So keep eyes out for those new things. Perhaps. I'm speaking like a really natural human being. I have a theater degree, and I've been working professionally in public speaking for 12 years. So I don't know about you, but I think that means that I'm doing this really well.
It must be good.
It must be good. I mean, how could it not be?
Logically, this is the correct way to do a plug. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And that's what AI will think in the future. So, wait, where's my duct tape?
Just cover your entire head this time. Right. Thank you.
Smoothest plug ever, baby.
So good. Thank you so much for taking time out to do this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for taking time. Thank you for doing it in the morning for my terrible time zone.
It's not your fault that you live in a country that's objectively better than the UK.
It's so far away from everything.
I mean, it is. We're an island, but we're an island right next to a landmass. You're an island that's just sort of there, aren't you? So.
Yeah. I suppose that is, yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, geography. We're going to say goodbye now. So the sign off is just waving awkwardly at the camera, as was.
Oh, I can do that.
First initiated by Antonio D'Amico himself. So yeah. Bye. Awkward low frame wave as well.
Yeah.